Well, hey, everybody. My name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend, Mateo Coltist, and this is the Coltist. This is your Indianapolis Colts, Indiana Pacers weekly podcast. And we're going to go with season 2, episode 5. Hey, let's talk about Anthony Richardson, huh? Colts got a big win Sunday at home against the Titans. Anytime you beat a division rival, that's great.
Yeah, it's always good. Yeah.
But as the title of the podcast kind of gives it away, Anthony Richardson got tackled real hard and left the game holding his arm. It really looked like his arm came out of socket and that he couldn't, he was unable to use it. I empathized greatly. For most of you that know, I was in a Marine Corps infantry and I actually got hurt playing football too, a shoulder injury. Now I ended up getting hurt a couple other times while I was injured, but the original injury was a football injury. An AC joint. I had to have surgery. I think the first thing I want to say is I don't think that there's a lot here, much like I don't think there was a lot to the taking him out the other two
Yeah.
times. And the only reason I'm saying that is and maybe it's the information warfare aspect of all of this. And I've been talking about that forever and felt like a crazy person, but the hard reality is if I had any desire to play Anthony Richardson again this year, I'm afraid we're gonna have to not be fully truthful about the severity of his injuries. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Because he gets tackled awkwardly. Uh, what was that? Week 1. If you
Mm,
recall, was it week? Was it week? No, it was week 2.
yeah.
It
The
was week
week
2.
two is the touchdown. Week
No,
one
where
is
he fell on the
the
back was week 1. The one where he got hit in the back.
no, I don't remember.
Okay, so there were two instances before this most recent one. Um, the one he got hit in the back and came out of the game, and then the next time he played, he's running into the end zone and pulls up, and the guy hits him anyway, and he goes down on his back real hard, and his head hits the ground and shit. All I'm saying is that if he was actually injured, they'd have called it. They'd have said he has a concussion. He came back and got another concussion, and then he injured his shoulder. It's a grade 3 sprain.
Hmm.
He's out X
Yeah, at
number of
least a
weeks.
month. Yeah.
None of those things have happened. I'm just pointing out facts. At no point thus far has he been given a concussion designation. He's been in concussion protocol. I'm not saying he hasn't been it. They did not designate him with a concussion. I'm just saying, dogs, just like they haven't designated that he's got a grade 3 AC joint sprain requiring surgery.
Yeah.
Like they have not done these things. Um, and I'm forced into two schools of belief, right? I'm either to believe that he hasn't been that injured all this time and he's a tough motherfucker, just like they're being precautionary about this, right? Or much like Andrew Luck, once the hits start coming, they don't stop coming. And they're just lying about what's really going on. And we'll never really know the truth.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the reason that we will never know the truth is just what I was alluding to before we started. Hey, I'd actually rather have Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor than Anthony Richardson at this point. Here's why. Um, if the Colts can game plan and run the ball effectively, you don't really matter who the quarterback is. And I'd like to think a guy like Gardner Minshew is better as Joe, like Brock Purdy, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think that while Gardner Minshew for us is the best backup quarterback in the NFL, what he's going to have to be is the steady hand that the Colts haven't seen thus far. Fair?
Yeah.
Guy gets pulled out of 3 straight games due to getting banged up. That's not the model of
Yeah, that's
consistency
not
we're
what you
looking
want.
for.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to break all of these things down, all the 3 hits down, just to make sure we're all on the same page here. The first time that Anthony Richardson got pulled out of a football game in the NFL, again, I'll always go back to he was trying to do too much. They're inside the 10. He decides to take off on a pass play, gets it inside the 5 down to like the 2.5, and he thinks he's giving himself up. He's on his way to the ground, and he's not trying to get down there as fast as he can to avoid getting hit harder, and he gets rolled up on. And like I said, I actually thought the injury wasn't necessarily the guy hitting him in the back. It was the guy that kind of rolled his body over the top of Anthony. And I think that the injury is when he kneed him in the head and it banged off the turf. And he immediately was like, got up, like, I don't want any more of that shit. Right. And I think he got his bell rung. I'm not saying he got a concussion or not. I'm just saying, like, that's what happened the first time. I already said what happened the second time, but just to go in order, the next time he gets pulled out of a football game, it's because he's done scored on you, right? Flatly, quarterback run for a long run for a touchdown, right? He had the angles on everybody, right? He scored upright. That means you beat everyone to the goal line, right? You have the correct angle on everybody. And he pulls up just in time for a guy full speed to whack him one. He wasn't expecting it. He tries to land on his back, right? Give himself up, but he doesn't eggshell himself forward, and so his head goes back, hits the turf in the back, gets his bell rung, pulls himself out of the game. Okay. And then this last time, very similarly. So I think they all have a very similar flavor. This last time that Anthony Richardson gets hurt here, he's giving himself up as a runner, but he's in the process of going down anyway. And he just gets drilled. And then when you watch the way he lands on the right shoulder. And when you're a right-handed quarterback, that's like you're a glass cannon, man. That's like their big thing. You know what I mean? So I say all of those things to say, I think that when you're a really good athlete and a smart football player like he is, he's right in all of those situations. You were go down. It's okay to pull up. You're in the end zone. All of those things. The problem is everyone in another jersey is trying to kill you, bro. And I think until he understands that those other guys get paid a lot of money too. You just outran their entire team. So they want to hit you, right? Don't make yourself an easy target, right? And I feel like we're starting to talk about Anthony Richardson much like we did about Andrew Luck early in his career, where it was like, God, he's great, but holy shit, you can't be taking hits like this, right? This is not how we have a long and fruitful career. This is how we have a 5 to 7 year career and end up quitting because it just ain't worth it. And again, I always want to make sure it would be great if we were sitting here talking shit about the offensive line. Wouldn't that be great? Like,
but that's
so
not the case.
much better when you're like, but the offensive line is terrible and they need to get their shit together and they need to get Strausser out of there. You know what I mean? Like, it's better when you can just blame the whole offensive line. And so the good news for the Colts is that I think they'll actually be better without Anthony Richardson for a while. I think that Gardner Minshew's going to be a little better at distributing the football and getting guys some opportunities that they haven't gotten with Anthony. Because to keep it short and sweet about Anthony Richardson, the game is played differently when he's under center. It's just a different football game. And I think that, like I said, Shane Steichen pulling in Anthony Miller, getting a Kellen Mond, it tells me like they know they can't run the same offense. We've got to take the RPO option stuff off the table and work more towards an air raid, actually, because they don't show a 2-back set often enough for me to believe they're going to go two back heavy and run the rock. I don't know that they're going to do that. Do they have a fullback on the roster?
No, I don't think so.
They don't
No.
have a fullback on the roster. It's going to be difficult to just power run, right? So I think based on the weapons I've seen, I think the Colts have 1.5 number one wide receivers. It's just I think that Downs is the true number one, and should be
Yeah.
utilized like one, and that you can let Pittman and Pierce fight for number two, and that if your distribution works that way, I think you score more points. Um, so the good news is I think that, and again, I kind of said that before we got recording. The real jewel of all of this is Shane Steichen, the coach calling the plays and probably crafting a game plan around his available personnel and doing really good at it because you can kind of feel it. You're like, oh, that was a dedicated play for Grant's. I like this. You know what I mean? Like you can feel these designed plays. You know what I mean? Where it's this play was specifically designed for Anthony Richardson. You know what I mean? Those first four keeps to start the game for 40 yards. Is that this week? Or was that the prior week? But those were all, in my opinion, design runs where they said, you know, we're going to run this inside zone going away. Defense is going to overreact. Just watch the end. If he crashes, pull. And 4 carries for 40 yards when you're the quarterback, in my eyes, is the opponent did not game plan for an athletic quarterback. It's different when he looks like a regular ball carrier, averaging less than 5 yards a carry. That's just regular ball carrier.
Yeah.
But when you're getting bursts of yards, when you do decide to run, it's telling me they're not ready for this. And that's good. If Anthony Richardson can keep himself healthy, they're violent on offense. And I say violent
Yeah.
because there's just so much competence around Anthony Richardson that all he has to do is stay healthy and the Colts can win with him at quarterback. The good news is you can also win with Gardner Minshew and Shane Steichen
Yeah.
game
It's been
planning.
proven. Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here saying Colts have fallen off a cliff. They're now trash. This is going to be a dumpster fire. No. The Colts also happen to have, I think you were telling me, one of the easier remaining schedules
Yeah.
in the NFL anyway. So I'm saying like WTF Anthony Richardson, but also like Gardner Minshew, like for a few weeks anyway.
Yeah, it
I
might be
don't
nice.
I don't know that he could be more than that, like a fill-in starter.
I don't
Um,
think so, no.
to me, he doesn't have the body or the arm. And you have to have like one or the other. Both would be sweet. Um, and I'm not sitting here and saying he's a shell of Anthony Richardson, but I don't think that he could take the abuse and he can't make all the throws.
Yeah, but he won't be put in a position to take the abuse
No,
that Anthony Richardson took, and then like he
just
like
keep his uniform
we
clean,
have seen.
please.
Yeah, we have seen him from what, like 50% of the snaps, I believe it was.
Yeah,
He gets the ball out fast. He
yeah,
doesn't take too many hits when he scrambles. I mean, he knows how to take care of his body. He
yeah.
doesn't take a lot of punishment, like he
Gets rid of the
he
football.
takes care of his body. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm not worried. I think the injury risk with Gardner Minshew is almost. I mean, of course, you're playing football. There is always a chance of injury. I mean, you're playing
oh for
one of
sure.
the. That's given, but I think Gardner Minshew has to be. He reminds me somewhat of like, someone like Tom Brady, where you're like, hey, they don't take unnecessary hits. They never do. I mean, you watch them every single time, and somehow they always manage to avoid it. I mean,
Yeah,
against the Titans, it was just a single hit that he took, and it was to convert on a third down where he had to take that in order to get the window like open for his receiver.
Hmm.
But other than that, he's not taking necessary shots. He's not holding the ball for too long. He's not scrambling when he's not supposed to. I mean,
Oh
I'm not
yeah.
worried about him at all.
Colts play in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock on Sunday. And if there is a team in the NFL that are more ripe to just give one up at home, it's got to be the 1 and 2 at home, meaning they've already lost 2 home games. Jacksonville Jaguars, coming off a big win in London against Buffalo. That's probably their kind of big win of the season.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to ride that wave. And like you were telling me before we started recording, hey, Jacksonville's actually got a really tough remaining schedule. And it really could come down to Indy Houston for the division. So the Colts going to Jacksonville and get a big win, it kind of puts a writing on the wall, right? Like, hey, you split the series with Jacksonville, in my eyes. First year is Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, right? And Anthony Richardson's not playing every day. Like I think you just told me, the backups played half the snaps. So if you'd have told me by the end of the first quarter of the season, right? Because now with 17 games, there are 12 remaining in the season. So we got 3 quarters of the season ahead of us, right? But if you'd have told me the Colts were 3-2 and still in the division, and their
Yeah.
starter only played half the snaps at quarterback, I wouldn't have believed you, right? Um, say all that to say, uh, another gem outside of Shane Steichen, there's 2 others. Zach Moss, who the Colts signed this offseason.
Nah, they traded for Zach Moss last
Traded for
season.
Zach Moss last
It
season.
was in the trade for Naheem Hines. He was included there.
Ooh. Oh, so we stole him.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So little did I know, Zach Moss has been probably the best acquisition in terms of expectation and output. Um, and then also Zaire Franklin. And I kind of felt a little bit like this last year, but now it's like, hey man, they're not always the sexiest plays. I
Nah.
actually think he makes the play of the game and only gets credited with a half a tackle because somebody else had held him up, held the back up, and he just came in
Wagner.
there and
Yeah, it was
cleaned him up.
Wagner.
Hmm. So I feel like you're getting a high level of play, and it's not Jonathan Taylor, it's not Shaq Leonard, the guys that are getting paid at those positions that are supposed to be that. Um, and that lets you know, like, you know, a lot of the impetus on NFL players is to like continually get better or continue to compete at a high level. And it's hard to during the season, especially when there are injuries. And it has to be particularly concerning when your quarterback keeps getting dinged up, right? But what
Yeah.
I'm saying all of that to say is, hey, if I'm a Colts fan, I think that these are all precautionary pulls. And I wouldn't put too much stock into them because, like I said, I honestly think if he were hurt, they would have made injury designations. They would have claimed, hey, Anthony has had 2 concussions and now a really bad AC joint injury. And for the record, they haven't done any of those things. So that tells me again, either they're playing a game, the game within the game, right? Or he's 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 getting lucky, right?
Yeah.
But by the time he gets examined for the nth time, he's clear, right? Sliding through by the skin of our teeth. But I hate to feel like this game is kind of for the division.
Yeah, I mean it's still way too early to,
It's a little
to.
early.
I mean it's a key game, of course, because if you win this one, I mean if you manage to steal this one in Jacksonville, then suddenly, I mean Texans at home. I mean that's a game you should be winning.
You're right. That's what I'm saying.
And then the way the Titans are playing, I mean, who knows what they will look like when we face them again.
But they're going to be even more broken
So
down, right? So
yeah, I
that's what I'm
mean,
saying. Like Jacksonville's coming into this game off a high, right? We just beat world beater Buffalo in London and had our best game. And their schedule after us is dumb hard. And if the Colts win this game, you're 4-2 in control of your division. Obviously, you'd be a game up on Jacksonville and 2 games up on everybody else.
yeah, and
But
you
I'm in
you could you could very easily be looking at a 5-1 divisional record,
right.
and that has to be good enough to win it. Like that has to be good enough to win, the AFC South.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we talked about is that the remaining schedule. I mean, of course, I mean, disclaimer, you never want to underestimate anyone. And of course, you have to play every game, and
Yep.
that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But the Jags is brutal. Tennessee has a tough schedule. Houston, I don't think they are as good as they have been playing. I think CJ Stroud had a couple of really good games, but I think, the Steelers are not that good. I think the Steelers are quite terrible, to be honest. And the Jaguars are not good either. So I think Houston kind
That
of,
that's why
falls
I'm
back.
saying. That's what I'm saying. This is for the
So
division, right? You go down to Jacksonville and handle business here, and you're 4-2. This tells me, the fan, oh, they're competing for the division. They're willing to win and go to the playoffs this year if this is what it takes, right? Because Jacksonville's already lost to Houston.
yeah,
So they've already got a division loss. And that's why I'm saying, like, hey, this is for the if the Colts go down there, put in a sad effort and get blown out by the Jags, right? Well, then the Jags are 4-2. The Colts are a game behind. Even though you have a weak schedule, it's like going to be kind of tough to win your division. That's what I'm saying. So my thought process is this game's for the division because it's a week to week league, and wins mean a lot more at this level.
yeah,
And it makes me think, like, they're getting their offensive line back. By the time you get Anthony Richardson back, the hope is you keep that line intact and they get a few games together. I'm always thinking about, like, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Iron Curtain, right? And thinking about how many years their offensive linemen played together, and how wonderful it would be, right? If you have a healthy offensive line, a healthy AR, and a healthy JT. Like, just having to defend Anthony Richardson's difficult enough, but having to defend, like, Jonathan Taylor when he's Jonathan Taylor, not
yeah,
this first appearance of JT that was a little hesitant and running well behind his pads and did not appear at all like the person that you extend, and instead it was Zach Moss who's carried the torch.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm I'm in, I'm encouraged by what I've seen out of Anthony Richardson. I just need some more situational awareness. I need him to be a little more um have better peripheral vision, better anticipation. And some things you can have in spades, and what he has um is he can throw with anticipation. And he's got a big arm. And we've talked about, and we lauded at him before about being able to make an athletic play and throw. And he's such a rare specimen.
yeah,
But the problem is He's thinking too much, and he's thinking that a guy in another uniform's got your best interest, and they don't. They literally have the opposite. They're trying to
Yeah.
hurt you. And if he can get that into, I think we've talked about this a lot. Like I just started coaching high school football, and I told my players, most of whom have never played, you have to work and have an attitude about this game that the person on the other side of the ball is trying to kill you. Now, if you knew that that guy is willing to kill you, and when I say kill, we definitely had our best player
Yeah.
get cheap shotted in the very first game. He got blindsided. He was standing still, well behind a play, and a guy ran up and knocked his head off, and he had a concussion. Okay. So if guys are willing to kill you, they'll also cheat. And they also don't work as hard as you're working right now. So it tells me that you can outwork this problem. You can outrun this, right? We could turn this boxing match into a track. And then it's just about managing repetitions and spreading the ball and getting your athletes into open spaces. And the
Yeah.
Colts are doing all of those things. It's just the only problem is Anthony Richardson thinks he's still how do I say, everything that he was before he was drafted by the Colts. And there's probably a period of like 5 years, 4 years of high school football and then Florida, where he's so big and so fast that 90% of the defense isn't playing in the NFL. So it's just like one guy on that whole field that's like good enough, good as him, right? And now there's 9 or 10 of those people on every defense, and they all got mortgages too. And
Yeah.
and that's the thing that I think he has to learn very early in his career, or it's gonna be a rough ride. What's fortunate is that the Colts have Chris Ballard. And outside of being pretty young at corner and maybe have spent a little too much money on Shaq Leonard, given the product on the field, um, the Colts are a year or two away from being dangerous. I can kind of see it now. Um, as long as they're, and again, I'm always concerned about the mass exodus, right? Like when do people
Yeah.
just start to move on, man? You know what I mean? Like there's some linemen here, your Ryan Kelly's, your Quentin Nelsons that have been here for a while, ain't really won much. Um, I'd love to have them be here for life, right? For the rest of their
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
Uh,
You want it.
Otherwise, I think you get a couple more years tops out of that old O line, couple more years out of those. You got really talented defensive tackles, um, Big Grove and Buck. Um, you could really, I mean, winning this year is crazy, right? Like the fact that we could be looking staring down the barrel of 4-2 and in control of your division with your starting fourth overall pick quarterback only having played half the snaps is great. And by the time the game's over, he played less than 40% of the snaps, right? Because the assumption, of course, is well, he's out for the at least this week. And that's what before we started recording, I was asking around, like, had we gotten an injury designation back? I think that originally that he was told is a grade 3 strain and that he had trying to go to get a second opinion and that it's been crickets since. And that makes me think, okay, his second opinion did not say grade 3. So either it's worse, I don't know that, or it's not as bad as you know what I mean? It's a grade 1 or 2 strain. He's out for just 2 or 3 weeks. Any amount of time he misses, I'm okay with. because I'd like to think if you're not learning getting knocked out of the game, maybe you're learning on the sideline in street clothes while Gardner Minshew does it. Because, like you said, Gardner Minshew doesn't take punishment. Gardner Minshew gets the ball out fast. We're not going to be running our RPO option stuff. They even added Anthony Miller. We used to scout players and create a scout guide. I remember scouting Anthony Miller. He's the only issue he's 29. So he does
Yeah,
bring some age to an otherwise young Colts team. Um, hmm, I'm
yeah, Tampa.
intrigued. Hmm?
Yeah, yeah. I remember. Wait, how much experience? Yeah, he has. What, this would have been his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 8 seasons. Yeah, damn.
Mm-hmm.
He did have, he does have. He had a season where he had like 52 receptions, six over 600 yards, two
Yeah.
touchdowns. I mean, this is not a guy that just
This is
he has the experience.
we're gonna go pass heavy, run a little air raid. Two running backs, three wide receiver looks. Um, and we need an extra body. But
Yeah,
he had a lot of those receptions were from um Mitch Trubisky
yeah.
and
I mean, you have to take that into account.
Houston and Pittsburgh in 2021. Again, those teams didn't really have a good quarterback situation. So we'll see what happens with Anthony Miller. I have great expectations. He's 29, not 200 pounds, not 6 feet tall. He did run us.
He fits, he fits the bill of what the Colts have been liking so far at receiver. I mean, if you look at
Yeah.
Josh Downs, they, Josh Downs has over. I checked it out today. He has over twice the targets that Alec Pierce has.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, he could be a guy that has a meaningful impact here.
Yep. That slot role um, is something the Colts have gotten good use out of. That's one of the schools is teams cannot defend the slot and the run. So you know what I mean? It's like a either or thing. You can't do both. So I'm encouraged. I had said I'd rather have two running backs than a quarterback. So because on rundowns you always have a fresh back is that's pretty tough. You got to stay home. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
play action's really good now because every down's a rundown. And you know what I mean? When you have two A backs, um, smash and dash. Remember that back in the day?
yeah.
Uh, what was it? Chris Johnson and what was the other back's name? Tennessee.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember.
Gosh, smash and dash. It was just they were really good two backs. Um, so yeah, I think that certainly makes, like you were saying, a winnable schedule in the next few weeks. It ain't that rough. We were talking about Colts have Jags, Browns, Saints, and Panthers. Like that's not an A tier slate.
Nah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, not
That's
at all.
that's that's a C tier slate. Panthers are beatable, Browns are beatable. The Saints will give you a dogfight, and then the Jags is for the division, like I said. Um, and I'm excited because it's like you don't have your backup playing in a short week, right? And I feel like last year that's what it felt like, right? Like dang, and it's a short week too. Like oh, we're gonna get thumped, right? Like
Yeah,
this year don't feel like that. Like um again, I'm still kind of cloudy. And again, I'd asked and wondered like, hey, is something come down about Anthony Richardson? Because the details appear kind of fuzzy at the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing yet. From what I've heard, on the Locked On Colts podcast, they said like, "Hey, I wouldn't be surprised, if the Colts, they keep their cards pretty close to the chest. They're like, okay, well, let's get a second opinion on this, and let's wait. Let's get. I mean, like they're not gonna be announcing it like, hey, he has this. This is gonna be the timetable. They're gonna take their time. They're gonna be cautious with their approach. Like,
right.
but
And then
if
and
you ask
all
me,
I meant was like he's not out for the season getting surgery.
nah, yeah,
You know
he's
what
not
I
out
mean?
for the season.
And I think that's what I was saying. That's by all of the things that I was saying for the record. It wasn't I was just alluding like none of these are season-ending injuries. Like I'm okay with this. He's getting dinged up, man. Hopefully he learns from this and develops some tendencies that aren't trying to go down and getting absolutely drilled by like,
Yeah,
hey man, I got bills to pay too. I'm trying to get player of the week too. You know, you know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I'm certainly encouraged. You're leading your division in scoring on offense. Um, I'm encouraged because CJ Stroud has played well so far, and I want a good natural rivalry. I think it motivates your players to work hard all year round. When hey, we got a really good quarterback, they got a really good quarterback, and hopefully they both have real long careers, and it emboldens the you know what I mean. Like if you both have good quarterbacks, one of you should be going to the divisional. You know what I mean? I think iron
yeah,
sharpens iron. You're better for it. All those things. Um, but the Colts have beaten the Texans, and we did get them early. So yeah, and I still want to get the taste out of my mouth of losing my home opener. If I'm Shane Steichen, I lost my home opener to the Jags. You know what I mean? At home. You know, like
yeah.
I want
Yeah,
to go
your
on the
debut,
road.
yeah.
I want to start the decline. You know what I mean? Like I want to help the Jags because, like you said, even if you don't factor the Colts in, it's a rough ride after us, right? And I think, man, it's just night and day from what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, I think I went into this season thinking if we go 500, that's awesome. Like
Yeah, that's a good year. Yeah.
such a good year for first year head coach, first year quarterback. Um, but where we are right now, I'm really looking forward to see. I just want to see this team all healthy and in the right frame of mind. One game would be awesome because I think you're going to win plenty. I'm not worried about that. I just want to see all healthy and playing. I would love to see Shaq Leonard get it back. Uh, he's he's seemed night and day from where you usually find him. You know what I mean? And I want to see him get that step back too. And if that takes a few weeks, fine. Same thing with Anthony Richardson. If it takes a few weeks till he's ready to come back, fine. Because he can certainly do all of the things, and that's all you're really looking to find out early anyway, right? Can he do all the stuff? Okay, cool. Then we can build. You could build around that. You know what I mean? Um, and then in terms of the Pacers. The Pacers lost over the weekend in Memphis in overtime, and
Yeah.
then tonight are on the road in Houston.
They're up
Currently,
by two, I believe. Yeah. Up by
uh,
two, right?
they're down 7.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
So
Had a bit of a
currently down
perhaps a bit
7,
of a
about
delay.
6 minutes left in the first half. But these are preseason games.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw trying to remember which head coach it was, but he was explaining it to the media, and I get it, we are the media, but how like the rotations work in a preseason game is nothing like what we're going to do in an NBA game, like in a regular season game. or the playoffs, like, or the midseason tournament. None of what you see really matters. You're really just looking like how well these guys play together, right? Because otherwise there's too many starters that just are out, right? No Miles
Yeah.
Turner tonight, no Halliburton tonight. Hey, that's your starting point guard and your center. Rotation's gonna look a little different. Effort's gonna have to look a little different. But otherwise, we are certainly getting into it, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting close
I think I saw the opening night is October 24th.
for the Colts. Yeah.
No,
For the Pacers, sorry. Yeah,
I think
brain
it's
fart.
period. I think opening night for the NBA is
Ah,
October 24th. I don't know that they play on the 24th, but I know like regular season tip on the 24th at 7:30. Um, so like I said, we're still, it is what is today the 9th? 10th. It's the 10th of October. So yeah, we're 2 weeks away. So I think we've been saying that like every week, like, oh, we're still a few weeks away. Well, now here we are, 2 weeks away. We're into preseason ball. Not trying to read too much into it. Just enjoying. I don't know about you, but I saw that as of I think it was Thursday this past week, there's a college or NFL football game for 51 straight days. Um, and then you've got the NBA starting too. So it's definitely we're into this season, and it's not a total shit show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
hey, we got something to cheer for. Um, and of course, think about this. And of course, I'm getting ahead of myself. I should be careful, but could be in a situation where the Colts and Pacers have a winning record. Well, how about that? You know what I mean? Like, we haven't had that in a while. Um, but I think, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while since the Colts and Pacers were good at the same time. Um, again, the Colts and Pacers are both very young, so this is just part of that. Some years you're gonna start fast, be in it when it is the first year for your head coach and quarterback, you know? And sometimes, for example, the Pacers had two first round draft picks, Ben Shepherd and Jarris Walker. Well, what if both of those guys develop and become like starter worthy
Yeah.
players? Hey, that's
Yeah, they
real
don't even
good.
have to be they don't even have to be all stars for it to
Mm-mm,
be,
mm-mm.
you know, just
Nope. Just got to
solid
keep up the
star type
intensity.
guy. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you got a pretty good starting five. Um, that's going to be competitive with a lot of teams. And all you really need is that second unit to come out and not give up a bunch of buckets and fail to score in their own end, right? Uh, Ben Shepherd, pretty mature basketball player, and then Jarris Walker's long, and him and Miles Turner on the
Yeah.
floor at the same time just seems awful to try to score against. So that feels like about it, don't it?
Yeah.
For season 2, episode 5. Again, we were talking about Anthony Richardson tonight. Um, have a great week, everybody. We'll see you after next week's
We'll see you
game.
next week. Yeah.
Get a big win in Jacksonville, right?
Hopefully.
Hope.
That would be nice.